Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I want to introduce you guys to something new. You know, I'm always doing something new and different. So I decided to change the name of what I was doing before from I'm Just Saying with Dr. B to Stream of Consciousness because a lot of what I am talking about, I thought about it and I said, this is not really so much of a talk show, but it is more of my thoughts from me to you, which is really like the stream of consciousness. So it came to me and I was like, let's go with that because that is a little more of what we are doing. And so today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about rejection. And so I think I'm going to do this in a couple of different parts, but today I specifically wanted to talk about rejection in terms of jobs and employment. Reason being because there is a lot going on when it comes to employment right now, and so many people are looking for jobs. And I was like, if they're like me, when I'm looking for a job, I'm hoping to get something quick, but we know that it takes some time. And so the rejection of not getting a job right away is sometimes very difficult to deal with. So today, I kind of wanted to go with the topic of rejection is redirection, right? And this is navigating jobs and relationships. And I may throw something else in, but today we're going to talk about the job aspect of it. So I really kind of wanted to tackle how do you handle rejection and turn that into a growth opportunity for yourself? So have you ever opened that email and you dread when you see the words, we regret to inform you, or you open the email and then there's like this paragraph, thank you so much for, applying and, you have great credentials and your skills are all this, but we regret to inform you, or we have decided to go in a different direction, or we have chosen a candidate that best suits what we're looking for, or we have chosen a candidate whose skill set best applies to the description of the job, all those things. And I know if you're like me, each time I read that, my heart sinks because that means even more time that I have to spend looking for a job, right? We want this to be a process that is over and done with fairly quickly. And I think right now it's even more important to talk about this because for all of us who are government workers, we know that so many government workers were laid off. There have been about almost 20,000, um, we'll say, layoffs, early retirements, all that kind of stuff from the federal government right now. So of that, we know that there's approximately, we'll say 10 to 15,000 that are still in the workforce that are going to be looking for jobs that we are going to be competing against for employment. People who have been in certain positions for years, are suddenly thrust back into the job market or the job hunting market. And so that can be so difficult when you have spent years feeling like you have been secure, that your employment has been secure and you've had nothing to worry about and you were going to retire from this job. And all of a sudden, you are thrust back into a situation that you may not have been in like 5, 10, 15, 20, some people 25 years. You're back on the job market looking for a job. So what I want to talk about first is normalizing the rejection. We have to normalize the rejection and understand that rejection is a part of life. Even the top candidates for positions, those ones that are chosen when we receive that email that says we regret to inform you, the ones who have gotten it, they have been rejected over and over again as well. Statistics say that you will apply for a job between 21 to 80 times before receiving a acceptance or an offer. I don't know about you, but when I think about that, I'm like, how many applications do you enter in a day? And if I have to apply up to 80 positions before I get some type of an offer, that is a lot. That is a lot of time and effort that you have put into this whole thing. And some people say, well, you got to put in a lot of effort in order to get out of it what you want to get out. And that is so true. But the reality is that is a long time and a lot of applications to have to put in, to have to go out. We're not even talking about interviewing. I mean, God forbid if you had to interview 80 times, but putting in 80 applications to me is just such a crazy number to think about in terms of the process for getting a job offer. We know that some of the most well-known people have been rejected time and time again. We can say like J.K. Rowling, her books, prior to Harry Potter, her things that she put out rejected from publishers. Steve Jobs, rejected from jobs, which is kind of funny. Steve Jobs rejected from jobs. You get it? Okay. But then someone that we all know, Oprah Winfrey, if you know her story, she started on a news network years ago, right? But she talks about how many times she was rejected from her job offers or from her application, from her footwork that she put in. She was rejected time and time again. But through perseverance, she was able to land her job as a news anchor, which ultimately kind of put her in place to be catapulted to the person that we see today. So the next thing is really emotional and mental reset around the whole rejection process. The first thing we have to do is acknowledge our feelings about what's going on. I think that's so important with a lot of things. We have to take a moment to acknowledge the feeling behind what is taking place. When you get that rejection, it is okay to feel a moment of disappointment. Or I don't want to say it's important to feel self-doubt, but I know that's sometimes something that we feel. We definitely feel frustration when you think about, go back to that number. If you're applying and you're at like number 60 application and you get another rejection, I would be ready to cry my eyes out because I'll be like, oh my God, how long is this process going to take? So we got to acknowledge the feelings that we feel behind that, but then also we have to shift our mindset. We have to understand that rejection is not a reflection of our self-worth, but it is a redirection, right? It is telling us that no, this may not be for us, but we got to redirect our attention to something else. We have to figure out what may have gone wrong with this thing, if something did, and fix it, redirect it. A lot of times it's hard to just accept that we were not the perfect candidate for a position. Even though we have all of the skill set, we're able to do the job, it's hard to imagine that, and it's hard to accept that a company would say, we regret to inform you that we chose someone else, right? But what we have to do is learn to shift our mindset and move on and figure out what may have gone wrong or what made us not the perfect person for this position, if that is the case, and redirect our attention, redirect our efforts onto the next thing. One of the best things that we can do to help kind of manage The emotional impact and the mindset of the whole thing is journal, like write down what you applied to, what you were not, like where you are in the process, what was the response. If you have an opportunity to find out why you may not have been a good candidate for this, write that down. It's good to take notes throughout this whole process. Journal it, and journal about how you're feeling about this so that you can better manage the feelings that go along with it. Take a minute to detach yourself from applying. You know, put in a couple of applications, take a moment, give yourself a moment to breathe, step away, and then jump back into it. Give yourself a moment to detox from that whole process because otherwise it can beat you down. The other thing that I would suggest is positive affirmations. Now, I don't know how much people really think about positive affirmations, but I am a person that does believe in positive affirmations because things that we say, we tell ourselves, we tell it until we believe it. And when we believe it and internalize it, we can manifest it. And so, like, I have a mirror in my house that I used to have like in a public space in my house. I had to move it to a private space because of some of the things that I put on there. But I have these sticky notes, which I love it because it looks kind of creative. I have like a plain mirror, but it has all these different color sticky notes on it with affirmations, things that I tell myself over and over again that have helped me get from one place to another to get over certain things. And I think it's so important that we do that. We talk to ourselves, that we reaffirm certain things for ourselves so that we can be in a great mind state to move forward and be able to do the things that we need to do. So, of all things, the journaling, the taking a moment to detox, I feel that for me, the positive affirmations are the most helpful. It is the thing that I say to myself, it's okay that you didn't get this particular job. This one may not have been for you. I like to look at it as I like to look at rejection as this thing was not for me, whether it is a job, whether it is some type of an opportunity, whether it is a person, all that. I think it's important to be able to manage the emotional impact of it and do a mental reset. And for me, like I said, the positive affirmations helped me with that reset period. Next, I think it's so important that we learn from our rejection, right? The best way to learn from it is to seek feedback. If you have an opportunity, like if you apply for a job and you do an interview and you have an opportunity to find out from that recruiter or from that hiring manager, hey, I know I wasn't selected and I'm so appreciative of the time that you took to interview me, but can you tell me why maybe I wasn't selected? Can you tell me why I was not the best fit for this particular role? Was it my resume? Was it my performance in the interview? Was it my discussion of the skill set or the things that I have done that did not win you over? What was it? Because you need to have something that you can work on. And the main thing to do, I think, is to ask. You got to ask in a positive manner. You thank them so much for their time, and then they might be willing to offer you some type of advice or things that you could do to better improve. Something that I like to think about also is self improvement techniques. Like, what is it that I can improve about me or what I am doing in that interview process? I know for me, I have had to learn in order to successfully interview, I have to do a lot of research. Some people can just like show up and say hi and talk about themselves. For me, in order to really feel comfortable, I have to do a lot of research into the company, research into the position, research into how does my skill set and my previous um, employment how does that bridge to what I'm looking for? What's the connection and correlation between the skills, and how do they meet and match? Because I'm better able to tell a story of that correlation if I research all of the information and feel comfortable with the information. So, find out how you can improve, overall the interview or your resume or just your alignment with the role. What else could you do possibly to better align with that type of role, especially if you are looking for a new and different position? You want to look at those things. What did this opportunity teach me is a great question that um, I think is important to ask yourself. I I personally did an interview a couple of years ago, and it was the most lengthiest interview I had ever done. It was 7 rounds, and I did 4 interviews in one day. So I had to do three on separate days. And then the last day I did 4 almost back to back. And so I stayed up at night reading about this organization, looking at my resume, looking at the position, trying to match the skills. And I was so proud that I was able to make it from step to step to step. And, it totally wore me out, but it was worth the effort. I remember in between my interviews on the last day, they weren't all back to back. I had like a half an hour between, some an hour in between, and I would take a nap to kind of refresh myself, because looking at the screen all day can wear you out, and it can just make you look tired, makes your eyes tired. So I knew I had to reset myself. But my thing was, what did that opportunity teach me? That all of the effort that I put in paid off. Even though I did not get that job, I made it to the very end, and I was able to talk to my the person that I was going to be working for, to find out, where did my interview kind of go off, or why wasn't I selected for the position? And I got the answer. And the thing that made me feel really great was, it was nothing that I did incorrectly, or nothing that I could perhaps have done better. It was just someone else who had a similar skill set but had more time in the type of position that I was applying for. And so it told me, stick with what you're doing, because at some point you will be able to get that type of job. And when I tell you, to me, it would have been a dream job. It would have been a dream job. So, lastly, I want to talk about moving forward strategically. Like, how do you refocus your job search? You got to look at things that really align with what you have done. Don't haphazardly just apply to things unless that's what you want to do. But if you're looking for something specific, look to see how your experience aligns with the job that you are desiring. Also, look at different resume assistance programs. Like AI has done wonders for resumes and personal statements and bios and CVs and all that kind of stuff right now. Use those things to help sharpen your toolkit for application. Use write your letter, your cover letter, and put it in Chat GPT, put it in all these other programs, and see how can it help further develop your letter. Put it in Grammarly to make sure that everything is correct grammar wise. Use all the tools that are at our disposal right now to further your letters and your resume. You know, Celebrate the small wins is one of the a big thing that I could say, you gotta do. Anytime you get that rejection, I wouldn't say celebrate it, but you want to celebrate the good that comes along with that. So, like for me, like I said before, I went through 7 different rounds of interviews. That was a win for me, because that I had never done before. It was something I had never even considered that would be necessary. But the fact that I was able to make it to the end was a big win for me. And it told me a lot about myself and why preparation was so key to what I was trying to do. So, in closing, I just want to say the final takeaway for all of this is um, stay the course and stay encouraged. You know, stick to what you're doing, stay encouraged. And one of the things that I want to kind of give as a final word is follow up on any recent rejections that you have with a growth mindset. Any rejection, say, what did I learn from this? What can I do better? What am I planning to do differently next time? And I think that those three things span across all different realms of rejection or things that we get rejected from. And I look forward to talking about some of the other things, especially when it comes to relationships and people. We have to learn how to redirect when we get that rejection, and any recent rejections, refocus it with a growth mindset. So I want to thank you so much for listening. This is Dr. B, again, with our new um, show entitled Stream of Consciousness, and we'll be back um, maybe in a day or so with the part two, where we talk about rejection from people. Make sure you like, subscribe, and set your notifications so that you can receive the notification when we go live. So look forward to seeing you again. Talk soon. Bye bye.